Thank you, all of you, for coming out on a Friday night. There's so many places that you could be, and on a beautiful night like tonight, and we're just thrilled that you decided to start the evening with us. So, again, Henry Ramos, I'm the principal of Maurer Prince Consulting, and the proud host of this event. I'll say a bit more about why a guy like me would be hosting an event of this topic just a bit. I'm happy to also report to those of you that live in the region that I've just accepted the position to be the artistic director and chief curator at Studios on the Park in Paso Robles. I'm a founding artist there, a founding board member, and really pleased to be able to come back and pick up on some really important social content work that we hope to feature going forward, and I hope you'll come visit us over there. In terms of tonight, before I get into the introductions, I want to just acknowledge, and I'm sure you'll join me in doing so, I want to thank Debbie over at Del Monte Cafe for the wonderful food that was just presented by the near the side of campus. Scrumptious and delicious as always. Del Monte, always a good spot. I also want to thank Stacy Jacob of Solterra Strategies. She was very instrumental in providing free wine for us, so those of you that are partaking, you can thank Stacy for that. I also want to thank Emma officially and Magnolia Stork for their help in making this possible. Without their logistical, magic, these things just don't happen. I hope that we can all agree that this is a treasure here on campus that we need to support more fully. Emma does a great job. So, yeah, let's give her a round of applause, absolutely. So, aside from what I've told you about myself in my public life, I'm a former member of the California Community Colleges Board, appointed by Jerry Brown some time ago. I'm an artist, I'm a writer. Those of you who know me know I'm basically a kind of a professional troublemaker. I'm sort of a person always provoking. And most important for tonight, I'm a very proud former board member and continuing supporter of the Women's Foundation of California, represented tonight by Surina Khan, who I'll say a word about more in just a bit. Through my long association with the foundation, as first a funder and then as a board member over many years, I've really been able to understand the amazing leadership that exists in our women's communities. I've learned about the power of women's sensibilities and their inclinations on matters of no less than civilizational survival, and especially when it comes to understanding the import of our children, our families, and our communities. Women really have really important new ideas, and they have the answers that we badly need. We live in a crazy time. I don't have to tell you that. But we also live in a really exciting, a really hopeful, and an innovative moment. And I believe that women are at the lead of the best of what we have to bring in those areas. And as I said at a recent event of the Women's Legacy Fund here in SLO, and I quote, "It's time for the men to step back and let the women lead." Women's leadership skills, their commitment and compassion, their care, their greater magnetism to pragmatism, their healthy humility and their humanity, these are all of what we need more of in our public life. We need quickly and badly to turn our attention to what they have to offer. We need to follow their lead to a better way forward. So to help me to do that, I thought, who do I know that could tell this story in ways far better than me? And it quickly became clear that I had some great resources to draw on, and they're all immediately to my left and your right. I thought first and foremost of Surina Khan, president of the Women's Foundation of California. They're celebrating their 40th anniversary this year, something to give a round of applause to. That's a long legacy of leadership. And she's going to tell you more about the marvelous work that the foundation does, from its grant making to its policy advocacy to its incredible Women's Policy Institute, now responsible for nearly 40 bills that have been passed by various legislatures and signed into law by recent California governors. Like me, Surina is a former member of the Ford Foundation staff and someone that I just admire immensely for her leadership in the social investment space. Also, I want to acknowledge another resource that we're turning to tonight, Emma Saperstein, the gallery director here, our host. She has brought, I think since her arrival here, just a dynamic new point of view in terms of what art and society can be all about. The Julie Heffernan exhibit that we were just seeing, I think, speaks to the power of her artistic point of view, and we need to support her more fully in her efforts to bring a new perspective, and particularly a woman's voice, to the creative offerings here at Cuesta and throughout the region. Last but not least, I turn to our dynamic mayor, Heidi Harmon, who is a friend and somebody who I would say is easily one of the state's most courageous and interesting and innovative elected officials. She's been a national leader on climate and social justice issues. She's become a good friend, and I just have the utmost admiration for her. I always learn from her and her presence, and I know I will again tonight. So thanks for joining us, Mayor. Last but not least, I want to acknowledge Barbara George, who has very generously agreed to moderate the conversation tonight. Barbara is the former director of the foundation here at Cuesta. She's an elected representative, a member of the Board of Trustees of the College District, and just one of the most impressive and enlightened people that I've had a chance to work with. As a former member of the Board of Governors for the system, she was always a great partner. So when I think of the amazing qualities and contributions that women and girls across our region have to offer that are still being undervalued, it angers me, but it also inspires me to think about what it would take to make the world a better place. Women leaders are truly our best hope for a happy, healthy, peaceful, and prosperous future. The women who will be speaking to us tonight embody that. So without further ado, I'm going to do what I advised earlier. I'm going to step back and let the women lead. And with that, I'm going to turn it to Barbara to carry us forward.
Thank you, Henry, and thank you for bringing us together tonight. It's important for us to hear the story, have this conversation together. Henry did not mention that he at one time was a member of the board of directors of the Cuesta College Foundation, and that was a wonderful opportunity for all of us. And one of the most wonderful members who offered such good wisdom and guidance as a member of the governing board for the California Community Colleges. We're so grateful for his term appointed by Governor Brown. And then, of course, as a member of the Women's Foundation for California. And he's brought us here together because we are celebrating the 40th anniversary of the Women's Foundation of California. Thank you. Interestingly, I think, and that today is the International Day of the Girl. It is also a day when the U.S. Supreme Court is considering cases with the potential of profound change. It's a day when the House is meeting in the ongoing impeachment inquiry. We live in interesting times. But it's also a day when right here we reflect on the changes since 1979 when the Women's Foundation of California was created by people who knew they were more powerful together. And together they have become unstoppable. We're going to hear more about this from Surina as the evening progresses. But the Women's Foundation of California is a movement committed to racial, economic, and gender justice. So how appropriate that this is also the day when we're gathered here to discuss women in power in our region and in our state, and to consider how we can join forces to do more. Here's how we'll approach our panel discussion. I have a few questions that open up the conversation, and any of you or each of you can jump in at any time, and then others may add to the discussion. After about 30 minutes, we'll open it up to the audience to ask questions of our panel. So audience, be thinking of your questions. And panel, let's begin. So let's start by considering how our institutions and our quality of life has been improved and advanced because of expanded women's representation and women's leadership. What are the things we should be considering about our institutions and our quality of life and how we've been impacted by women's leadership?
Well, I'm happy to start. First of all, thank you so much, Henry, and to all of you for inviting me to be with you tonight. I always like coming down to the Central Coast, or up, as it may be sometimes. I get around most of the state. So I'm really happy to be here, and I think to your question, I just want to add to what Henry said, is that in 1979 we were founded by a group of women. Our origin story starts in both Northern California and Southern California, because in the 70s things were pretty different. So I kind of want to start on a positive note, which is that we've made a lot of progress. When we were talking beforehand in planning for this panel, I was reminded, because we're in our 40th year, we spent a lot of time going through our archives and really trying to more deeply understand our founders' vision. And in the 70s, you know, women were not able cards in their own names or mortgages. It was in, I think, 1993 when we needed to legislate in California. Governor Pete Wilson at that time signed a law that said you can't discriminate against women for wearing pants to work. So things have, we've made a lot of good progress, and yet there's still so much to do. So we know that California is the 5th largest economy in the world. We're a global economy. We have incredible resources and wealth in this state, and we have the highest poverty rates in the nation. And most of that is, in the rural parts of the state, in the Central Valley, and primarily single moms and kids are the ones of color living in poverty in our state. And so we still have a lot to do. And at the foundation, we have 3 strategies. One is to make grants to community-based organizations that are working in communities of color and low-income communities, to train leaders from grassroots communities to be effective policy advocates. And Henry mentioned that almost 40 of their policy projects have been signed into law. A few you'll recognize, maybe like the Domestic Worker Bill of Rights and increased access to child care subsidies. And then we act as a convener and a connector so that we can really work with partners across the state. And I'll just say one more thing before passing it on to my fellow speakers here, is that I just came today I had to head from San Francisco to Sacramento, where I was fortunate enough to be invited by the governor to attend a bill signing ceremony, which is history in the making here in California. And it really emerged from student leaders, young women at UC campuses who realized that they did not have access to abortion services on campus through their student health centers. And they came to the Women's Policy Institute, and we worked with these advocates to, it made it to the governor's desk last year. Governor Brown vetoed it. We did it again this year. It got to Governor Newsom's desk, and today, not only did he sign it, but he brought the students and the advocates together for a bill signing ceremony. And what it does is it requires publicly funded universities in California, so the UC system and the Cal State system, to provide medication abortion through their student health centers. And we're the first state in the nation to do that, and it emerged from student activists, and it comes at no cost to the state because we have organized a consortium of funders to pay for the implementation. And I will say that other colleges and even private universities can opt in and actually receive funding if those entities wanted to institute that here. So that is about the leadership and expansion of leadership of women across our state who are making these incredible changes happening that are giving hope to really the rest of the country in these troubling times.
I mean, you know so many things. And I think back to Barbara's question about how our quality of life improves, and I will always speak from the personal and my experience as a woman working with women in collaboration with women and with women leaders, is that I think that there is a unique ability that women have to acknowledge the whole person and to work within that framework. And I found that to be really helpful for me.
Thank you. Before I get started on the question, I just want to acknowledge a couple of things, which I feel like it does come from the feminine or the divine feminine perspective, and that is that we are on Northern Chumash people's lands right now. And I want to honor that we are guests here on their land, and also just really want to honor Cuesta. I was a Cuesta honored alum last year, and I think I'm probably the only honored alum who has a 10-year history at Cuesta. As one of my teachers, Margaret Corrichelli, can attest, I was in the art department quite a bit, and I don't think that at that time she would have suspected that I would have gone on to be mayor of San Luis Obispo, taking so long to get through Cuesta. But Cuesta is such an important resource, and Cuesta itself, I think, actually really comes from what I see as a more feminine orientation, and that is the inclusivity, the accessibility of the approach that Cuesta takes, that everyone can come here, and that there's a lot of opportunity created by a space like Cuesta. So just want to honor those things. you know, I also just want to note that today is also, in addition to being, I guess, Day of the Girl, it's also National Coming Out Day. And that reminds me, talking to my kid today, who is gender nonconforming, that gender on some level is a construct. And let's be clear, women or female identified people make everything better. Like, that's my answer, you know, Barbara, to your question. I mean, that's what I see. You know, you see that from coming from a political space and a political perspective. We see that even at the federal level, where there's not a lot of positive reports that we can make, but women have traditionally been the ones that reach across the so-called aisle and connect, more collaborative, really about solution orientation as opposed to a more competitive orientation. One of my favorite examples of how women make things better in a real meaningful way is the country of Iceland, who was hit disproportionately hard by the 2008 recession. And when they really took a look at how did this happen, what's really going on here, what they took away from that is that this wasn't a human-made crisis, but it was a specifically masculine-made crisis. When they looked across their own country, they saw that the hedge fund firms that were very masculine, they were really struggling and had been actively participating in what ended up being a failure in that country. There was one hedge fund group that was female led, and they were doing well. And so they really took a look at that. And then the policies that came out of this understanding are really clear and meaningful. They have gender parity legislation in both boards of directors of corporations, but also in terms of their political mandates, in terms of people in elected office. And it's had real measurable results. And I think that, you know, women bring this more, what I've experienced is a more nurturing, inclusive attitude that truly is about lifting people up. And so I hope that answers the question, but that's what I see happening.
Good, thank you. And thank you, Surina, for the announcement about the bill that was signed into law today. Great work. We've had some pretty powerful women here at Cuesta College. Some of you may remember Dr. Grace Mitchell, who made some great changes, great strides at Cuesta College, and in women in leadership roles. And our current president, Dr. Jill Stearns, her son had the audacity to get married this weekend, so she's not here. But she is a transformational leader, and I think we're all learning from her now. So, good. Let's talk about the current status of women leaders across our region and across the state. Where do you think we're making progress with the status of women leaders across our region and across our state, and where are we not advancing as well? Anyone want to jump in on that one?
It looks like I'll try. Yeah. I mean, we're at this real precipice on so many issues, right? I mean, you can feel it. Patriarchy is in its death throes, right? And just like any other system that's dying, it's very, very dangerous. And that's what I see. So we have made progress in terms of female-identified folks taking up space and in positions of power and leadership. And that is a part of what's happening in the greater culture in terms of this really heightened misogyny, patriarchy, racism, all of it. And so we're really at a moment where we get to and must decide what kind of world we want to create, because all of these systems are breaking down, right? Climate crisis makes that really clear. Frankly, you know, capitalism isn't working, and capitalism, frankly, is a very masculine approach to an economy. Let's be real. You know, and so these things are all breaking down, and so the folks that have traditionally benefited from these systems are not going down without a fight. So yes, we are ascending into more power than we've had on some level, and this ascension is also, I think, really causing the whole system to really be in a very defensive and attacking mode, which we see every day.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. And I think that, there are areas of progress in the state. For example, in the last year in elected office, we went from 23% elected women at the state legislature to 30%. So is it good enough? No. Is it progress? Yes. We have Heidi Harmon as the mayor of San Luis Obispo. That is amazing. In LA, we have almost 4 out of 5 of the county board of supervisors are women, and maybe soon to be entirely all women. So there is progress, and it's important that we make that kind of progress. For the first time in the history of California, we have Senate President Pro Tem Toni Atkins as a woman and an out lesbian. So this is amazing. And for me, I was in a hearing room last year with our Policy Institute fellows as we were doing some of the trainings, and in that hearing room there were pictures of every Senate president from the history of California, and one after the other it was a white man. And so when you see the visual of it, it really it really hits home. And of course every portrait of every governor in the state has been a man, and so we have progress there too. We want to see a woman in the highest elected offices in our towns, in our cities, in our state, and in our country. So I think that we're making progress in getting there, but similarly, this is a story that's true in the field that I work in philanthropy in the nonprofit sector, where, it's sort of like what I call the 17 to 25% problem, where no matter where you look, women in leadership are, not represented, whether it's in academia, in the healthcare industry, in media, in the corporate sector, in the nonprofit sector, in philanthropy. So we do have a lot to do in terms of, how we, make advancements. And at the same time, there's this incredible work happening. So in our Policy Institute, for example, we've graduated now more than 500 community leaders through this program at the state level, which is in its 17th year, and each one of them are connected to a network of thousands of people. So when we do the math there, we know that we can activate millions of people for progressive policy change, and for the first time, we finally have somebody to coordinate the alums. And then I will just say that one of the things that we worked on with the California Budget and Policy Center is a Women's Wellbeing Index, which has data for all of California's 58 counties. And so I brought some fact sheets just for San Luis Obispo County. It's an online tool that you can access through our website or the Budget Center's website, and it's open source, so you can put it on any of your websites for organizations that you might work with. And one of the things that just really bothers me ever since we produced this tool in 2016, it's compiled from data from the California Health Information Survey and the American Community Survey, and it has 5 dimensions: health, safety, economic security, employment and earnings, and political empowerment. And we're in the process of updating it, so some of the data may not be accurate, in particular the political empowerment, because we've seen more women rise to public office. But the thing that bothers me the most is that in every one of California's 58 counties, including here, a single mom pays more than 100% of what she brings home every month in 2 line items in her budget: childcare and housing. So in San Luis Obispo County, it's 50% for housing and 64% for childcare. And the 50% for housing is actually better than most other counties in California. But what that means is not only is she going into debt every month, but she also doesn't have basic money to cover other basic necessities like food, transportation, clothing. And so at least what we know is that we have these numbers, and we know from child care advocates that we really should be spending about 10% of our monthly income on child care. So we know where we need to get to, and we have some baseline data so that we can hopefully watch that needle move in the right direction.
Shocking statistics. 50% for housing and 64% for child care is shocking. And thank you for bringing this data together. And as you said, Heidi, what kind of world do we want to make? And what kind of leaders do we want leading us in this new world? Emma, I'd like to direct a question for you. to open up another conversation. And I'd like you to talk about your work with women and girls in the creative context and the social investment that we need to make. For example, converting STEM to STEAM. Would you? Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so I do not teach. I sort of work alongside our art department, which is really fantastic and does so much amazing work with students. So my relationship with students personally is very different than sort of faculty would have. But I would say that the gallery and the gallery's presence at Cuesta feels very important for this area, because it's not like you're in Chicago or New York City where students who are interested in the arts and interested in either becoming artists themselves, but also aware of the other opportunities there are in the art world, whether that's curatorial, like I have, or administrative, or there's just not a lot of awareness of what kinds of opportunities there are in the arts and how important that awareness is. And so I feel like the gallery's presence on campus is important because it's the space where you get to get your eyeballs on that, on work and have those conversations. The STEAM stuff I'm not as familiar with, but I will say I started undergrad as a bio pre-med, and I got through about a half a semester of organic chemistry, and I said, oh no, and decided to change directions and work in the arts. And there was so much repeated support. I had a very supportive department that I was a part of, and saw time and time again how they were trying to support girls and women who are interested in becoming artists or becoming a part of the art world, and I find it really important. I mean, the arts have it hard when budgets get cut, and so I think encouraging students to be able to express themselves in other ways is really important. You're an artist.
What was coming to me when you were talking is that the arts are such an essential part of how we learn how to be human. And again, with climate crisis, it just is so clear to me that climate crisis is ultimately, and all these racism, misogyny, all of it is really ultimately at its root, a spiritual crisis of separation. This otherizing of people, this otherizing of gender, this otherizing of nature comes from this illusion that those things are separate from us. And we are really called in this really unprecedented moment of human existence to really be present for this and each other. And art is going to be and is so crucial to confronting and inviting and thinking about what it is to be fully human. And that's as important as STEM will ever be.
Exactly.
Well, I'll just add that I think art is so important, even though I will admit that when I was in high school, I really felt that I was not, interested in art, and I wanted to drop art, and to do so, I had to go see the dean of the high school and ask him if I could drop art class so that I could take Latin, because I felt that it would be much more useful to me. And it is one of my regrets, because as I get older, I find myself more drawn to art, not only just to enjoy it, but also to think about my own creativity. And one of the things that we have done at the foundation is also think about how art is linked to social justice and social change. And because, one of our colleagues in the social justice world, Jeff Chang, says something that really sticks with me, which is that politics is where some of us live some of the time, and culture is where most of us live most of the time. So whether it's what we're listening to, what we're engaging with on social media, what we're eating, what we're watching on Netflix or Hulu or whatever it is that we're watching, those are the things that really touch us. And yet at the same time, we know that in those fields, in the entertainment industry, here we are in California, 96% of all films are directed by white men. So we see what's happening in our culture, and rape culture and the scenes that we see, and so those things need to change. And so we launched this year in July a Culture Change Fund, which has 3 components. One is research and interacting with movement leaders to figure out what it is that they want, so that we can be pushing stories and messages out to communities that will really touch people in our emotional states. And so it's really informed by movement leaders, but what we also learn from artists and culture makers is that some people, like you may have heard of Fabiana Rodriguez, is making incredible art. In fact, she did an ice cream for Ben & Jerry's called Pecan Resist. And so she's making this incredible art that she considers to be movement art, but she doesn't know if it's actually useful to the movement. And so we know from them that we need to connect movement leaders and artists and culture makers to each other so that we're coordinated and using art in addition to community organizing, coalition building, policy advocacy, strategic communications as a form of social change. And our theory is that it will accelerate the kind of change that we're trying to make.
Good. Thank you, Surina. And I appreciate the fact that you can interject data into this as we move along. I appreciate it. And we do want to take your questions now, but I do want to say one more thing, and that is this. Okay, this year, 6 women declared their candidacy for President of the United States. We no longer have 6 women in the race, but we have some powerful women in the race. So why is accessing and using power so important to women and girls in our society, in our economy, and in our politics? If you would each care to comment on that, and then we'll open it up, so be thinking of your questions.
I think we should ask our elected official.
Okay, so when women run, they are as likely as men to win. The challenge is we don't run as much as men do. Women have to be asked at least 7 times before they'll run for office, before they'll actually do it. So when I'm in a context like this, I always ask. If you're already here tonight, you're probably a good potential candidate. So I'm gonna ask you to run for office. I'm looking at you, Krista, I'm not seeing you, girl. Run for office, run for office, run for office, run for office. There's 5 times. So if you hear that 2 more times, you should probably consider stepping up and running for office. So there's that. Why is it important? I mean, representation, we know, is so key, right? When we see people that we identify with, however we identify, we can start to see ourselves in those positions. And the policies that we create are key to lifting women up. Family leave, on and on. The wave of women that came up after is 1992. Help me. Joe Biden was so mean to her. Help me.
Anita Hill.
Thank you, Anita Hill. That wave of women had some really significant policy implications, and we're seeing that again now. And not only are we seeing women, but also let's also name what hasn't been named here in this space is that women of color in particular have a unique and important story, and this is the most diverse House, I believe, that we've had in the history of the United States right now. And we're seeing those women of color in particular sharing in a way that feels new and that is really rattling people in a way that I think is really important. So it's not just about women, but it's about all of these underrepresented voices really starting to come into power and taking up space. And the policies, and on some level, I mean, no doubt the policies are key, because the policies drive the practices that create our world. But what we really need is culture shift. And these women, and these women of color in particular, since the last election, are such an important part of culture shift. You see someone like AOC, you see young people all over the country, they love her, right? They want to be her. And that's how you make a culture shift. And so, it's concrete things like policy, but it's also things that are hard to name and define that really, I think, are making a difference right now.
Well done. Well done.
Well done, Heidi. Run for office.
There's 6.
There's 6. All right, so we'd like to take your questions. Are we going to run around with the mic?
Yeah, I can do it.
All right, either way.
Or maybe Henry can do it.
I can do it.
Oh, all right, let's put Henry to work.
I always wanted to be Oprah Winfrey, and here I am. Any thoughts, questions? Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I'm going to get a workout here, which is good. Tell us who you are before you ask your question.
Yeah, oh yeah, more into the audience. Phil
Sure.
Donahue.
Yeah, my name is Matthew Fisk, and I teach art history at Cal Poly. I'm actually here with a couple of my students who are studio art majors at Cal Poly. And my question is, what advice do you have for young women who are becoming artists, not just in terms of kind of a general sense of what you've been talking about, but individually, in terms of the world that they're going into, and anyway, how they can excel and be part of this sort of empowerment movement or effort. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, I'm going to make an executive decision and give this one to Emma, because it seems like that's right in your wheelhouse. What do you have to say about this?
So your question is, what advice do I have to young women artists? Well, be a little pushy. The first internship that I had in college, I knocked on the door of an artist I admired, and I wanted to work with him. And he opened the door, and I was like, "Hi, I'm here for the summer. I like your work. Can I work for you?" And he was like, "Do you know how to wash paintbrushes?" And I was like, "No, but I can learn." And I did, and that particular internship ended up opening a ton of doors for me. And I think I was really encouraged to just keep asking for those opportunities. And it is a small community, but they still exist here. And I think that there's a lot of opportunities to just get involved. And that can be going to all of my shows. You should all come to all of my openings, all of the openings here. And also getting to know the people in your classes and your communities, because that's really, they're gonna provide the support system to propel you. So just get very involved in everything you're doing. And then go up and down the coast. Go to San Francisco, go to LA, and look at as much art as you can. All the galleries. If you need a recommendation of a day trip in San Francisco or LA and galleries to go to, I will help you. And please come and hang out if you're here, if you're local, come and hang out with me in my office. I'm always happy and excited to talk to students about art and career and artists and all things like that.
Yeah. I want to give it over to Andrea Devitt. Tell us what you do here on campus, because it's important.
Thank you, Henry. My name's Andrea Devitt. I'm an academic counselor here at Cuesta, and I've been in public education for almost 30 years. One of the things that I think is super important, and it was incredibly important to me when I started college, is empathy and kindness. And one of the things I see for success in students is empathy, and I think I've heard from the panel tonight is lifting each other up. And what I've seen for students in I guess, contributing to their success or lack of success is their lack of support system or their support system, I guess. So I guess what advice would you give to the audience to help students or community members to help women or anyone to seek out a support system, to seek out villagers to help them find supporters, if that made sense. Thanks.
Good question. Coming back down. While I'm doing that, I want to commend the men in the audience. I see a lot of men in the audience. I'm really thrilled about that. Give them up. Give them up. Give them up. That's got to happen. It's beautiful. You want to address that?
Sure, so no doubt, I mean, that really makes a huge difference. What advice? So advice for students?
Advice for anyone. You and I have a son about the same age.
Yeah.
Made a big difference to me when I heard Hillary Clinton's speech we
Yeah.
find more villagers?
Well, so much of life, I think, is about paying attention in general and showing up and being curious. I mean, those are three of my main orientations in my day: showing up, paying attention, and being curious. And I think if you're doing that, you will nexus with someone who would benefit from your support, most likely. But it would be great, and there is an event coming up, and I wish I had the date right in front of me, but there is a local organization that's actually constructing a place for people to land in terms of mentoring, and is calling people up to mentor. This is a women's organization, so it's with the intention of mentoring younger women, or actually just women in general. We hear a lot about, because of the lack of access and resources, and also because of the masculine nature of the competitive nature of our culture, has created a situation that you often see women not lifting each other up, but instead being in a culture that creates, or often feels like it demands, that you cut each other out because there's such limited access. And so we definitely need to be intentional and conscious of that, and intentional, especially as we are, some of us that are lucky or good enough, or whatever it is, skilled enough to ascend into these positions, to be mindful about that and reach a hand up to lift people up. So I think there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. There's a lot of work that's going on around that. Also, though, too, kind of to speak to what Emma was just saying a minute ago, there's a real call right now, I think more than ever, to stand up for each other and to stand up for ourselves. And if you're in need support, reach out to people too. So I think that there's an opportunity for students and anybody to hear that message too. I think people are really hungry to help also. So I think there's, in this community especially, I feel like, in my position, almost every single night I'm at another event that is about supporting some group in need. And so that heart, we have a heart for that here. Nobody moves to San Luis Obispo to make money. Now, there's a lot of money here, that's no doubt, that's also true. But there's a real heart for community and quality of life and that sort of thing here, so I think there's a big opportunity to mentor here.
Surina, do you want to say something about that?
Well said. I think, the first thing that came to me was showing up, being curious, I think listening, but I think showing up is really important. If we want community, then we have to be community for someone as well. And so I think that we have to seek out support. I would say to young people, ask for help. If you see an organization or a leader or somebody that you admire or somebody that you want to get to know, ask if you can meet with them. I get those requests all the time, and honestly, they're one of my favorite things to do, is to because somebody did it for me, and it's our job to support others in life. So I think that seek out support, and for me, it really just means showing up.
Great. Any other questions, thoughts, comments? I'll come over to you.
Hi, I'm Andy Mutziger, and I work at the county, and I just one thing I want to just recognize is that in 2017, we have seen that millennials are now the majority of the workforce. And I'm really excited about that, because the last 2 employees that we hired at my district were millennial women, and they are amazing. I hired one of them, and she's leading programs as a new master's student, and she's just doing amazing work. So I'm very excited about women in the workforce that we're seeing. The one thing that I really appreciated about working for county is that there is equity kind of built into the system. And there's opportunities for that. It's not perfect, but there's certainly opportunities for that. My question for you is, on the private side, we see gender inequity, we see social inequities, And I want to see if you guys have some, or you gals have some interesting insight in how we can shift to have much more equity within the private workforce.
Thanks for your leadership and your question, Andy. Why don't we start in reverse order? We'll come this way. Barbara, do you want to comment on that?
No.
Okay. No worries, no pressure.
I think it takes a really multi-pronged approach, and I think part of it is about the kinds of policy change that we're seeing in terms of pay equity issues, shifting culture in some of the male-dominated industries that we see, supporting women in a variety of ways. I mean, more and more women than men these days are graduating from college and have increased graduate degrees, and yet still we see income inequality. So we have to kind of put all the pieces of those pies together. And I think it really involves, in addition to that, the kind of culture change that we want to see so that women are, entering industries. There's a terrific organization in San Francisco called Women Action Media that I toured a while ago, and they're working with young girls actually in elementary and middle school to learn about everything to do with music. So these are, kids that are saying that they love music, and so they're learning how to be sound engineers. They're learning how to, make music, sing, or play instruments, the whole gamut. And yet when they go into the music industry, it's a, really harsh awakening. And so we have to kind of get more women into these industries, but then that we have to also think about how the culture is shifting. And I think the Me Too movement and the Time's Up movement has done, really shined a spotlight on these issues. And so it's just got to be a combination of things. And again, I think it really also comes down to supporting and lifting each other up.
Let's have a quick response, Emma.
Yeah, I think that the art world is very well known for being very heavily male dominated, even though there are just as many women artists as male artists. And it really is quite simple. Represent more women artists if you're a gallery, and work with more women artists. I try to be pretty intentional about that here.
I mean, frankly, it's going to take policy about equity, period. There's no question about that. At the rate we're going, and I haven't looked at the numbers lately, but I feel like it's going to be, you might know, 200 or 500 years.
280 years.
Thank you, Henry. Well,
218
you can stay. You can stick around. Yeah, thank you. 218 years before we get to parity or equity, right? At the rate that we're going, and so that's not going to work. And quite frankly, at this point, we probably don't have 218 years left on this planet, especially if women are not in charge, frankly. Sorry, I just want to put that out there. Just saying. So that we need the policy to create that equity.
Excellent. Okay, I'm going to take one more prerogative, and I'm going to turn it back over to Barbara for maybe a final thought from each of our panelists. Jano Cray. Jano's right. She's raising her hand. I didn't plan it that way, but I wanted to acknowledge her because Jano is on the Cuesta Foundation board and is the liaison to the Miossi Gallery, and has exercised great leadership in bringing us together tonight. I see you.
So I kind of have a question, comment, musing thing about equity that doesn't go so much to women having this job and men having that job. It's more about the jobs themselves. The example I can use is my industry, which is information technology, which I've been in for 40 years. And as long ago as 25 years ago, I was trying to get young women involved because it was such an amazing career for me, because it was creative. And no one would listen to me that computer programming is creative and stimulating and satisfying. And I think we have to change the conversation about what the jobs are and what they entail, and focusing more on STEAM instead of STEM. There's artistic creativity in engineering, but so many women are shied away from it because the language that men use to describe those jobs is male-oriented language. A very hot field right now is information security. And when I was getting my certification in that field, I was one of 4 women in a group of 65 men. And this was just 4 years ago. And it's amazing, it's an amazing career. And so we have to change the way we describe these careers, and how do we do that? Who do we talk to change course descriptions at school, and to really start encouraging these women to get more involved in things. You know, what was it last week, the woman who was, the high school woman who played football and then at halftime was the homecoming queen or whatever. I mean, that's progress, because it's not just shifting and saying there are going to be more women homecoming queens and more men homecoming princesses. It's saying we can do both, and we're looking for that value in each of those. So where do we go to start changing those job descriptions so that people are more inclined to sign up?
Thanks, Dana. Well, I'm going to turn it back over to Barbara. Maybe in the course of your final comments, each of you might want to address that point. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you for the good questions. Very good question, Jano. Very nice. I think you said it's going to take 200 and how many years before?
218.
18. I think when I started working, even though it was in the public sector, I was making 67 cents on the dollar from in, and I think I read recently it's up to 87 now.
Maybe
That's all the further we've gone in all those years?
I don't think
It's not even that high.
Oh, it's not that
Closer to
high.
82.
Oh, it's 80 cents. I thought I read that.
for white women also.
Oh, that's true too. That's another good point. That's another very good point. Well, I want to thank our panelists. I've been very touched and very moved by, and I'm very proud that I've been able to be associated with you tonight. So glad that I got to meet you, Surina, and Emma was such a good catch for this college. We're so lucky to have her, and of course we're very blessed to have Mayor Heidi Harmon. Thank you all three for a very wonderful response tonight. I appreciate it. But final thoughts, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for your comments and question. I think we really have to disrupt the status quo. So everything that we see, I think let's question it. And language is absolutely so important, and it's one of the things that can keep people out, as you have so well pointed out. So I thank you for that, and I just want to again express my gratitude to Henry and to all of you for being here, and invite you to become involved with the Women's Foundation. I brought some of the fact sheets. All of this is available on our website. This is our annual report, and this is an invitation to our 40th anniversary events. We have one next week in San Francisco on Thursday evening, and on November 14th in LA, so you're about halfway between both. And then we hope to be, yes, and we really hope one of our goals in our strategic framework is really to have deeper regional presence across the state, which, you know, ultimately we're you know, relatively in the scheme of things, a lean operation with about 20 staff, and our budget has grown to about $12 million, and that's sizable, and yet for a state like California with 40 million people and the highest rates of poverty, we need you know, to make a lot of connections and partnerships across the state with individuals, with foundations, with other organizations, and so we hope that you'll get engaged with us and advise us and get involved in our work. So thank you again.
Yeah, I will just say that I think the arts are a really wonderful way to think about all of these things and integrate them into one space. And I really try to program the gallery to be relevant and socially relevant. And so I hope you'll continue to come, and thank you all for being here.
So art saves lives, we know that. This whole conversation is just making me think of the 9/11 report, which you probably haven't read or thought of in a while, but after they studied all of the factors that went into 9/11, the first line of the 9/11 report is, "This was a failure of imagination." And we have such a failure of imagination in our culture in general. And the arts, obviously, are such an essential part of grounding us in what's possible. And that's such a key part of how I am in this role. You know, not a lot of people know I'm an art, or what am or was an artist. And though I think it's so clear how I operate in this space, that I don't actually have a failure of imagination, much to the staff's dismay at times. And that is so important, And so I just want to just so appreciate the folks that are here that are in the creative fields, and that's real. Like, it just gets discarded over and over again. But art saves lives, and imagination, if anything is going to save this planet, it's going to be imagination. Because we are called now more than ever to imagine the world that we want to create. And we're in a moment where we have the opportunity, whether we want it or not, to do that. And so I think my call to action for the people in this space is to pay attention and show up and notice that when you are with someone that would benefit from your support in some way, do that. Just lean into that one person. And I think that's a really good place to start.